Welcome to another time of Calm Under Pressure. It's great to have you all with us. If this is your first session or if it's your second time with us, it's great to have you. Whether you're watching live, whether you're watching recording, we are thrilled to be a part of your life and a part of your journey. We want you to be able to learn and to engage with us as we get into practical tools to help managing your stress through the fourth quarter. I am John Troutman. I am the host and I'm the Vice President of Business Development here at Mind Club America. And if you did not know who Mind Club America is, we are a one-stop shop for mental health solutions. Unlike EAPs or other type of solutions, we offer a wide range of solutions, including our digital community, virtual community, which Gail and Paul are a big part of. And that's what you're going to be sharing in one of those examples here today in Calm Under Pressure. I am thrilled to be introducing Gail and Paul. Gail has over 20 years in technology, marketing, operations, and she has created a number of classes and written some books about mental health and also managing your stress. She is very skilled and very relational. I'm sure you're going to learn from her, as well as Paul, who has spent 10 years working in mental health with special focuses on addiction. I can go on and on about these two rock stars that I am thrilled to be a part of their team, but I will turn things over to Paul and Gail.
Thanks, John. And I know everybody here has a really busy calendar and schedule, but what I like to do is create a little space between all of that work that we have to get done and allow us a little chance to focus. So this is one of my favorite images, and I'm going to ask you to just take a minute, take a deep breath in and a deep breath out, and just imagine yourself standing on the edge of this wonderful flowing river. The air around you is cool and clean. You can smell the pine trees on the other bank and the earth. Listen for that soft rush of the water moving over the stones. And feel your breath slowing down as you hear that water just flowing past you. Think of yourself taking a step closer into the river and feeling the sunlight warm across your face. And maybe you're going to want to reach down and touch the water and feel its refreshing coolness wrap around your fingers and flow over your hand. Feel that coolness work its way up your arm, across your body, soothing, calming, easing any tightness that you may be feeling. With each breath, as you feel the water running over your hand, release the noise and the chaos of the day, the deadlines, the messages, the emails, that endless to-do list. And imagine them flowing out of your body and just being carried away by the water. And now bring your attention to the stillness around you, the mountains in the distance, the forest, the trees, the endless sky. Feel yourself enveloped in this calm and connected to this moment. And as you breathe in and breathe out, feel some clarity returning to your brain. Feel the weight of those deadlines flowing away and lifting. And as you take one last breath, say, I'm so glad I have this time here. And why is this really important? Well, it's really important because I don't know about you, but I have gotten myself into positions where this is what my day feels like. I feel like I am drowning in everything that's coming in and coming at me. And what we want to do is figure out how to get back to a place of organization and calm, because urgency hijacks our ability to think, pushes us to be reactive rather than seeing all possible options and responding effectively. And we all know what it's like to be in that position. And what we're going to do today is talk about some tools that we can use so that we can reclaim our focus when everything around us feels like it's urgent. Let's jump in. What we're going to do today is we are going to focus on a couple of tools that will help you prioritize and focus all that chaos that's coming at you. We're going to talk about something called the window of tolerance, which is really the place when we're in it, we're able to respond thoughtfully. And we're going to look at some specific tools to help us stay in that place where we can respond thoughtfully, pause and shift. Because I'm sure, as we've felt, as things speed up for us, as stress kicks in, as we start to feel like we have to move faster and faster, we're not always more effective. And today's tools are about breaking that cycle so we continue to respond thoughtfully. So, the first tool we're going to talk about is the three-box method. And this was developed by Stephen Covey. He talks about it in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which many of you may have seen. This is actually a modified, simplified version. His system has 4 boxes, but a lot of people have taken his seminal work done in 1989 and they've modified it and tried to make it tools that are a little bit easier for us to grab onto, get into our habits, and figure out how to use. So 3 boxes, and I've got 3 up here, and they are different. The box number 1 is urgent and important. That's all the stuff that's got to be handled right now. The second box is everything that's important, but it's not necessarily urgent. It doesn't have a deadline of tonight or tomorrow or the next 10 minutes. And the third box is everything else. And we all know there's stuff that kind of isn't that important and it's not urgent, but it's on our to-do list, right? And we got to figure out how to get it off our to-do list. And the better we can be at kind of separating all this stuff that's coming at us, the easier it is for us to stay calm and respond. Now, I'm going to be talking about this 3 box method and giving an example. And in fact, if you have something to write on, I'm going to give everybody a chance to do a little bit of it from practice it for yourselves. This is not the only organizational method out there, but this is a really straightforward one. It's one I've used very successfully, both in terms of planning long term, but also just in the moment handling, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff that's on my desk. Wait a minute, let me separate it into 3 boxes and see how I can handle it. So the boxes are different sizes, and this is really important because the size represents how much time we want to spend on the things in each box. The first thing you'll notice, we're not spending the same amount of time on everything. The second thing you may notice is that everything else is a small box. We shouldn't be spending much time on that at all. The interesting thing is often looking at box number 1, urgent, and number 2, important, because box number 2 is actually bigger than box number 1. That's interesting. Why is that the case? Well, box number 1, the urgent and important, this is where you're going to be responding, and it's normal to spend your time here. But if you're always dealing with things in this box, you're always reacting. You probably are going to have a feeling like you're running and running and running, and you can never quite catch up because you're always trying to get the urgent stuff off your plate. Box number 2 is the important stuff. This is where you're investing for the future. This is where you're doing some planning type activities. And the thing is that when you plan and prepare on these activities, you actually end up preventing them from becoming a fire that lands them in box number 1, urgent. So by spending more time on box number 2 deliberately, you're actually going to bring down the number of crises that fall into box number 1. And we'll talk about that a little bit. And then box number 3 is everything else. And this is kind of, it's our distraction zone. And oddly enough, we often spend a lot of time in it. But Stephen Covey says, if you want to be productive, you only want to spend about 15% of your time on the urgent, because the investment is the 80% of your time is on the important area of your activities. Why? Because the important activities that you work on prevent them from becoming urgent or becoming fires. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But our ability to be calm and to manage our incoming work actually is going to be tied to our ability to make time for things in box number 2. And box number 3, you know what the secret to box number 3 is? Can we delegate it to somebody else? Is this something we really need to be doing? But how many of us find ourselves caught actually doing things that are busy work or that we don't think are central to what we're trying to accomplish, and yet we spend a lot of time doing it, right? All right. I have a request for you. I'm going to give everybody 4 minutes or so. Take your top um, 6 to 8 things that are currently on your plate. And if you have a pen and paper or a computer, or even just do it in your head, I want you to think of those 6 to 8 things. Which ones should be in box number 1? They're urgent. Which of them go into box number 2? They're important but not urgent. And which ones are in box number 3? As you're doing this, I'm going to say that something that I've learned over the years is that the visualizing, seeing an object, seeing a picture makes it so much easier for me to remember things, which is why the first thing I put up for us was the picture of the 3 different boxes and the different sizes of the boxes, because that can really help us to remember. Box number 1 is the urgent and important. Box number 2 is important but not urgent. Box 3 is everything else. And when we think about spending our time, we want to get to a place where 80% of our time is spent on things that are in box number 2. That's why it's the biggest box. That's where we should be spending our time. For those of you who are done or just about done, look at where you put your 6 or 8 top things that are things that are on your to-do list right now. And look across box number 1, box number 2, box number 3, and tell me where you're spending most of your time right now. Are you spending most of your time on the items in box number 1, box number 2, or box number 3? So this is important. And the reason we do this exercise, and this is a great thing for all of us to do, I do it from time to time. And in fact, I'm going to put up an example of what I did for myself at one point. But this allows you to sort of see how you're coping with the flood of things coming into you. Are you able to respond effectively and consistently? I would say that if you're spending most of your time on box 3, you probably feel like you're behind on things often, right? Because you know there's all this other things that you really should be doing, but box 3 feels like it's got to get dealt with. And if you're spending your time, all your time or most of your time in box number 1, you're going to be struggling with burnout because everything is urgent. And it's really hard to decide what to do with all the urgent fires that are there. And you're not getting the time or the opportunity to do the work that's going to prevent the next fire. That's the work you would do in box number 2. So this is a really good way to just kind of check ourselves and see where we are now and where we want to try to get to. All right, I'm going to put up a box that I did. This was some work I was doing when I was managing new technology releases, new product development. And I looked at my 3 boxes. I had box number 1, urgent and important, box number 2, important but not urgent, and box 3, everything else. So in my urgent boxes, I had client renewal meeting requests and returning my boss's calls. Had to get those done, no question about it. In box number 2, I had to create a presentation, client presentation about a new product that was going to be launched. Now, here's the example. If I work on that when if I make time to work on it before the launch date gets too close, I'm dealing with it as important. If I don't handle it, and all of a sudden the launch date is next week, well, now that thing is in the urgent box. And now I'm under pressure because I got to get it done because the launch date's coming here and I've got to have that client presentation ready, right? Right. So, manpower allocation of the holidays, and I also had to do manpower allocation for trade shows that we attended. Again, that's work that I need to do. It's important, and I don't want to let it go because as I let it go, it gets urgent, right? There's nothing like trying to fill people in at a trade show, with less than a week out for the show, for the trade show. Everybody's got commitments. They can't go. They've got whatever, right? You want to prioritize and protect the things in box number 2 and work on them. Make time to work on them. And then box number 3, everything else. Okay, well, let's look at the meeting notes. Weekly team meeting. Not one of my favorite things to do. And what could I do instead? I don't know. Maybe I could get 2 or 3 of us together and say, you know what, we're going to rotate doing the team meeting notes. So now I'm not under the gun to do those all the time. I've just moved them off my plate for a while, shared the load with somebody else. Vendor meeting requests, well, maybe I don't need to see all those vendors. Maybe I can just go through that and there's really only 2 or 3 that need to get dealt with. And track down the status of a new app, the launch date. What if I go to the launch team and I say, you told me this is the date? You come to me if there's a change. Now I don't have to go chasing down the team members and find out what's going on. I've gotten it off my plate. All right. So there are things we can do when we look at what's in box 3 and we think a little bit differently about them. Now, this is a great tool. It's a great tool. You've just done it now in the space of 4 minutes. You can use it if you get Stephen Covey's book, or if you have a different structure approach that you like. They're all great, but find something to help you sort out everything that's come in at you. And remember, 80% of your time, you want it to be on the important things. And the everything else, which takes up so much of our time, look at it differently. See if there's a way to delegate it, offload it, shut it down, right? Keep it to 5% of what you're doing. All right. This is a tool. I'm now going to hand it off to my colleague Paul, and he's going to walk us through some other tools that we can use to stay on top of everything that's coming in at us. Paul, take it away.
Thanks, Gail. That 3-box method is key. I really love that. And I think you did a great job kind of outlining the simplicity of it, and it's very effective. So there's another skill that we're going to discuss today that doesn't take a whole lot of time, that can be equally as effective. Pause and shift. Now, this skill can help you reclaim your focus and really separate from stress. But before we dive into this skill, let's explore a couple of components that will help strengthen this technique. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into the difference between respond versus react and what's called the window of tolerance. Next slide, please, Gail. So the window of tolerance is a great place to be in. And really, to simply put it, everyone has a window of tolerance. When we're inside that window, we can accept and handle most stressful situations in a preferred way, meaning we're in control of our approach. When we're outside that window of tolerance, things get magnified and emotional reaction sets in, right? So what this kind of looks like is outside that window of tolerance, emotion is in the driver's seat. And when we're in that window of tolerance, we're in a balanced, calm state and more in control. So I've got a couple of examples that I'm going to share with you. One is personal, one is professional. I think both are applicable. So the first example I'm going to talk about is the infamous stubbing of the toe, right? I would imagine everybody here has stubbed their toe at one point or another. And when we're in that window of tolerance and we stub our toe, not a whole lot of thought goes into it, right? We might acknowledge it, but for the most part, it doesn't disrupt our pattern. We go about our day, we keep it moving. Now, that same example, if we stub our toe and we're outside our window of tolerance, completely different ball game, right? We're taking a few extra moments, we're rubbing our foot, we're catastrophizing. This is just, now I'm going to be late. Now the pattern of my day, I'm off my flow. And that usually is a good indicator that you're out of that window of tolerance. Another good example is related to work, right? So I know for me, if you are going through your day to day and emails are piling in and you've got your flow going, maybe there's a project that gets put on your plate with an accelerated deadline and you're within that window of tolerance, not a whole lot of thought goes into it. You're already thinking solutions oriented, you're collaborating, you're just taking it in stride. You're saying to yourself, all right, this project just got tossed in my lap. Let's get it done. Let's keep it moving. Now, the same situation happens when you're outside your window of tolerance. It's a whole different ballgame again, right? Especially if it's end of business, 4 o'clock on a Friday, you get this accelerated timeline or deadline on a project, and now you're thinking to yourself, how am I going to get this done? You start getting stressed, you start living in the future, having this fear base, and it disrupts this pattern. And a lot of the times, what it ends up doing is it allows, again, emotion to be driving and it spills over into other areas. Simply put, when we're outside of our window of tolerance, it creates a very reactive state. So let's talk about reactive state and the difference between responding and reacting. When we are in a reactive state, emotions drive all of our actions, and it can make us present or show up in unattended ways, continuing that stress spiral. Emotional reaction directly leads to action. And so I'm sure everyone has experienced what that looks like and feels like. So I just want to invite everyone to think of a stressful situation in which you were in that reactive state. Did everything feel magnified? Did your emotions directly influence your actions? Did you feel in control? So the opposite can be said with a response state, right? When we are responding, we are more pragmatic, methodical, we're in control. Responding to these stressors allows us to take action in the ways that are more aligned with our values. I want you to think of this difference and how it relates to your stress or how you show up for stress. Put yourself in a responsive state of mind. So let's circle back to actually utilizing this technique of pause and shift. Now that we've explored some of those key components that will help aid in this skill, we're going to walk through what this looks like. Pausing is the first step in this skill, and it needs to be emphasized. It is probably the most important step here. You do not want to rush through this step. Pausing can look differently. One great way to pause is to just practice some breathing. Now, what this actually does is it biologically sends markers to your body and brain to stop the stress spiral. I know that I have fallen victim to being in a reactive state and more and more things get on my plate and continue to just act instead of taking a moment to separate from the chaos, separate from the crisis, and separate from the stress. So breathing is a good way to just remove yourself from the situation. And a strong pro tip here is if anyone was on our last week's session, we went over box breathing. Box breathing can be a very effective way to pause. But it doesn't have to be deep breathing. Sometimes it can be simply going for a walk, taking your lunch break, maybe escaping to a quiet place, reading in a book, distracting the mind. I mean, really fill in the blank as long as you're giving yourself enough time to separate from the reactive state. The next piece is naming, and that is simply just identifying what's going on. It can be as simple as, I feel overwhelmed, or I'm in a reactive state. My emotions are controlling my actions. I'm not showing up the way that I want to show up right now. Naming allows us to acknowledge we might be outside of our window of tolerance. The next piece is shifting, right? When we shift, we change our focus and allows us to move from a reactive to a more responsive state by bringing us to the present and thus giving us more control. Shifting can be as simple as what actually needs my attention, right? So you're instead of drifting towards, future tripping or letting that stress spiral continue, you're pausing, you're taking a break, you're separating, you're biologically slowing down those stress markers. You're identifying what's going on. Now you're shifting by centering yourself, getting back to the present, what actually needs my attention. And then you can engage in a responsive action, right? Acting is just that. Hopefully through this process, you've kind of got a little bit more of a narrow focus. You feel a little bit more in control. And one of the things that helps for me is choosing just one or two things. And of course, this is always subjective to your situation, but something that works for me is I'll say what's one or two things that will move the needle in an accomplishing way. All right. So what's really great about these skills is we've outlined these to be coupled together. And it increases in fact effectiveness when you do utilize the three box method along with the pause and shift. So if you have your three box method mapped out, you combine it with the pause and shift. What that looks like is during the pause, take a moment, take inventory of your three boxes. When you shift from your reaction state to a responsive state, you get to choose what box or what item in that box needs your attention the most. And another great thing about these tools is that they are not high impact, very low barrier, meaning they don't require a lot of effort, energy, or time, so you can repeat these as often as needed to get your desired results. All right. So we covered a lot of ground today with both of these tools. I do want to ask, what are some key takeaways? What technique seems to be most helpful for you? Maybe it's both. I'm going to hand this back over to Gail to wrap everything up.
Thanks, Paul. I got to tell you, for me personally, I cannot underscore enough the pause. It has saved me so many times by giving me a little bit of space, and I have my own things that I do in that pause. Each one of us is going to have our own things that work. How do we know that the pause is working for us? You're going to start to feel a little bit calmer. And your brain is going to start to see more options. So for me, the pause allows me to bring myself down and see things that I was missing when I was just jumping to react to handle something. So, we talked about a tool to help prioritize and organize the work in front of us. The three box method is a great one because it's you can, once you get used to it, and what you do is just as things come in, what box does it belong to? Even if you're just doing it in your head. Obviously, if you have it on a piece of paper, I think that's ideal, but not all of us are into writing things down. Just do it in your head so you kind of have a sense of, is this the box three stuff and I shouldn't spend a lot of time on it? How else could I solve it? Or is this the box two stuff that I really want to give some of my time and attention to? And the other thing we learned today was about this window of tolerance. Am I in a place where I'm going to be able to be responding rather than reacting? If I'm outside that window, what can I do to bring myself back in, pause, and shift to refocus? Next week, we're going to go deeper into learning how to do some quick resets to manage the frustrations that come up for us in the moment.
Gail, can I ask a question
Sure,
audibly?
John.
So I am, those who know me, I know this is no shocker. I'm a high intensity, high action person. I struggle with two boxes, right? I'm either all or nothing. So what are some, and I don't think I'm the only one in the benefits universe. A lot of my friends, connections, even someone here may tend to lean that way as well. What would you say to a person like myself who is either who typically finds himself all or nothing and struggles with that middle box? Like what would be some ways or some things they can do to get started to start implementing some things? And if you need time to respond, that's fine too.
No, I think I'd love it if you could. Do you have any example you could give me?
So, well, I'll just be so in a broad way. I have overcome burnout about 12 years ago because everything in my universe was urgent. Everything was. So everything was go, go, go. Nothing was in the middle ground. Like I needed to respond not just that day, but like within that hour. And doing that in all your relationships, doing that in business, and the list goes on for a long period of time. I mean, I was fried, and I've had to practice some things, and I do implement things, and I do not try to follow that protocol anymore. But from your perspective, for people who are everything is urgent, what would be some ways where they could give themselves grace to say it's okay to not have everything be urgent? Because there's some people, well, I'll give everyone the benefit of the doubt who's on this call, who might be watching this. I think everybody could have good intentions, but good intentions can burn us out with our mental health, right? So what would be some ways to give ourselves grace, or how might you frame that to a person who's struggling with, you know what, but I need to have everything be urgent? Is that helpful?
Yep. So I think that let me come at that from a couple of ways. One thing is I would actually have you practice the pause, because it feels like your initial reaction to any new thing coming in is, oh, I got to deal with it. And if you take just a few seconds to go, I'm going to pause. And in your case, maybe it's, I'm going to pause and I'm going to think about what I'm working on right now. And is what I'm working on right now, I should probably finish that before I grab onto this new thing. That would be one way you could use the pause. Um, another tool that you can use is to capture it and write it down. I mean, I've actually got a piece, I've got some paper that I use that actually has 3 boxes, right? And I've written the name, urgent, important, other. And another thing you can practice is that new thing comes in, which box am I going to put it in? And even if you don't do anything differently, simply putting it in that box and seeing where it's sat is a first step, because getting you to awareness of what's going on for you is the first key to being able to take some changes and make them yours. Because we're talking about habit change, right? Your habit is grab something and jump on it. And the other thing is to absolutely um, give yourself permission to leave something for another day. It does not mean you're a terrible executive. It does not mean you're going to fail in the project. It just means you're going to set it aside for another day and give yourself permission to do that. So those would be sort of 3 things that I would give you as a takeaway, because in anything that we're trying to do differently and to help ourselves, you have to do 2 things. One is be aware, and 2 is practice it. You're not going to immediately change how you respond to stuff coming in at you, but you can make big strides by taking little steps and practicing. Does that help you, John?
Oh yeah, I think that's great. And I guess, and again, I'm trying to represent people who may or may not even be on this call or who are watching afterwards as well. And a large number of my friends and connections, strategic partners, they have back to back to back to back meetings, and it's nonstop. So explain, and again, I open this up to Paul as well if you have input. It just explain the power. So I'm going to speak to what you mentioned. I love the power of the pause. That has been life changing for me. I force myself, and yes, I use those words appropriately. I force myself every morning against my will to do box breathing. I don't like to do it, but I know it helps. And I force that pause every day because I know afterwards I'm going to feel better. So that's one form of purposeful planning for a pause. What about between meetings for that person who has the option of setting up their schedule instead of back to back to back, just setting up a couple moments? You know what? I need to end this meeting 5 minutes early so that I can be best prepared for my next meeting. Maybe it's taking down a couple notes. Maybe it is box breathe, right? What is the significance of planning for the pause? Because I think we've talked about responding and using a pause, but what are some benefits to actually planning that, in business and life?
I'd like to jump in on this one. And first, I do have some feedback on your first piece, with the all or nothing, and the sense of urgency is all encompassing. So my question or my feedback to that is, have you ever defined what urgent means to you? Do you have parameters, or are you just going off of an emotional feeling? It feels urgent. So one thing that I would invite you to do is to actually define, what does urgency mean? And if you have things that you can compare it to, you've got everything in your urgent box, but then you have this definition of urgency. You go, well, does it actually fit this definition? Or am I just emotionally feeling urgent? And that can also be the indicator that you're in a reactive state, not a responsive state. Now, to your next piece, I think that's huge what you're talking about, and what that the benefits of what you're saying by planning or having it predetermined throughout your day is you're actually being proactive. And believe it or not, John, the forcing yourself to do the box breathing is being proactive. And that's something that we're going to talk about in a future session as far as preventative maintenance, preventative things that you could do to help reduce the stress. Instead of reacting to the stress, you're already kind of ahead of it. So the benefits are insurmountable, right? You're taking the time throughout your day to either do that box breathing, separate, pause, engage in something else. You're protecting your mental health.
Box breathing is critical to helping us stay calm. And the science behind that is, when we're under stress, our primitive limbic system is activated, our nervous system is activated, and our frontal cortex, the part that plans, that thinks, that manages, that controls, is offline. And what box breathing does is it takes our nervous system, which is in control, and it calms it. And when the nervous system is calm, then our brain that can plan, organize, prioritize, manage comes back online. And the other thing it does is, when our nervous system calms down, we go from being focused on what is that most urgent thing in front of me, because the threat is that I won't get that urgent thing done. And it allows us to look around and see all the different possible paths that we could take to deal with the situation. And there are a lot of different breathing techniques. There's a number of them that do different things, but the goal is the same: to quiet our nervous system down and allow our executive functioning part of our brain to get back engaged in our day. Thank you for participating. It's really good stuff. We're trying to break this down and make it little tiny pieces so that you can each have a little win in being better able to respond versus react to everything that's coming at you. So any feedback you have, we appreciate it. Your attendance and attention, we appreciate, and we hope to see you next week. Take care, all.
Have a great day.